take space, make time for those feelings. Allow for them to come up, allow for them to, be named and have a conversation with it. You don't have to process it all in one day.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Lessons from Living. I'm so grateful for you spending time with us today. The mission of Lessons from Living is to motivate change through inspiration, all for God's glory. And again, we are so grateful for your time. Is there a chance that you could be an alcoholic? Or perhaps you know a friend or family member who is walking this walk? My next guest has experienced this herself. She is a healed alcoholic. She is living in sobriety now for some 10 years. And so she will share her story of what drew her into that addiction and how she was able to escape its clutches. It's an interesting story. I think it's a hopeful story for anyone navigating this subject. I give to you Brittany Young. Hi, Brittany. How are you doing
Hey,
today?
Beth, I'm very happy to be here. Excited to dive in. Yeah,
Well, welcome to Lessons from Living. We're glad you're here.
glad to be here.
Yeah, you have an inspiring story about surviving alcoholism and living in sobriety. Tell us how that all began.
Oh, geez, where do we start? The drinking career, as I like to call it, really began when I was about 16. And at first, it was really just fitting in with the crowd and trying to, get in where I fit in, see if I can keep up with the big kids. But shortly thereafter that, it turned into a full-blown addiction. And when it comes to alcohol or any drug, it really takes the body about 6 weeks for it to finally realize that it's an addiction. But it takes the brain about a year. So it took my body 6 weeks, took my brain about a year to finally realize that I had a problem. And at 17, I truly was a full-blown alcoholic and did not care, did not want to hear anything about it. This was the lifestyle that I undeservedly and unknowingly chose. And it lasted for a good 10 years. And my drinking career was really wrapped around this idea that I needed to be successful because. And so for me, I got to the point where success equaled job, money, status. And if I did not have those things, I was not successful. And alcohol made me feel like I'm on top of the world. I can be anything and everyone to everyone because I am drinking. And I can enlist my alter ego to allow me to show up in places or to sell because I was in, a lot of sales roles where drinking was the thing and no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it further perpetuated my career of drinking, but it also made me less successful in the material world. So when I kind of decided, hey, I'm going to kick this at 23, I went 90 days sober. I thought I was in heaven, getting my life back. All was well. And then a friend invited me out for dinner, and she said, just have one glass of wine. Well, that one glass of wine turned into 2 years of a relapse and unfortunately a lost job, lost friends, lost family. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with me. They were walking on eggshells. I never made anyone else feel successful, but I kept feeling this way that I need to be on top of my things. I need to be on top of the world, and drinking gives me that. So by September of 2013 was when I decided to surrender my drinking and surrender to God, and made a decision that alcohol was no longer serving me. It was no longer serving my life. And if I continued, I was going to die. Um, so I made the commitment and the decision that it no longer was going to be part of my life. And I gave it up on September 18th of 2013 completely. And on the other side of that, 11 years later, I have a beautiful family, a business, being able to say to you today that I love myself. And I didn't say that 11 years ago.
Wow, that's awesome. Let's go back a little bit because I have some questions. Um, you say that when your drinking began around 16 into 17, you wanted to fit in.
Hmm.
And you have a daughter now. Do you have any other children, or is it your your daughter?
Just my two fur children. Yes.
Okay. Oh, we include them.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So your daughter, is it Avery? Is that right? Okay. What will you say to her when she reaches that age, those difficult years, about how to find her place in a healthier
Hmm.
way?
So, one, I'm actually not worried about her because I'm teaching her now what it means to be in your power and how to be fierce in knowing in your body that you don't need that poison to fit in. But if we do get to that point, it really does come down to self awareness and having your own experience. I can't stop her from going down that path if she chooses to or not. But what I will tell her is you don't need to prove your worth or question yourself because you're already worthy.
That's great. And I read that you also experienced a sexual assault as a young
Hmm.
person. Do you think that alcoholism and other addictions are often triggered by trauma like that?
100%. I think that we turn towards substances to numb or avoid traumas that we have experienced. And if it's not a physical trauma, it's, you know, words, it's abuse in that way. It could be a parent leaving the house and never coming back, or death of a loved one. So trauma shows up in many different ways. And for me, that was the beginning of the trauma, and I suppressed it, with the drinking. Um, but it also happened two other times as well. And so the drinking kept getting worse because of those assaults.
That makes sense. You said at the height of your drinking problem, I read your pattern was to drink Wednesday through
Mhm.
Sunday and then take Monday and Tuesday off. I thought that was really interesting. Um, I was just thinking if you were able to stop those days, you were able to stop.
Mhm.
Did it ever occur to you, I have control of this, or is it just something that you're just so sucked into that you're not able to see outside yourself like that?
I would say I never had control, and
Hmm.
it was completely unmanageable. It was not something that I could just stop because the physical craving was still there on a
Hmm.
Monday. You're itching to get back at it on Wednesday. I gave myself that 48 hours just to work and to kind of
Hmm.
recoup. And Wednesdays were always our company happy hours. And so I'd go to those. Nobody saw me as a problem. I didn't even see myself as a problem. And it wasn't until I got that pink slip on the desk and said, "Hey, we can't have you here anymore. Your performance is down." But that was the only explanation that I received because they can't legally say, "Hey, you're an alcoholic. You need to leave the workplace." Um, So yeah, I would give me myself those 2 days to rest and relax from the weekend, try to recover, nurse a hangover, and then go right back at it.
Hmm. You said that drinking cost you a
Mhm.
lot in terms of job, friends, and
Yeah,
family. When you became sober, were you able to heal those relationships?
I was not. I tried, and not one of them wanted to heal. So there was a lot of grief involved in all of that. I think from my perspective, and then probably from theirs as well. But unfortunately, no, not a single person wanted to continue the relationship.
Okay. Um, do you include your parents in
I do
that?
not, no. Mm-mm.
Okay. Okay. Because it sounded like they were very much in your corner.
My dad was. My mom was not. My mom was definitely on eggshells for quite some time. Um, but then when I think it was around Christmas that year when, she offered me some wine and I said, I'm done drinking. And the light bulb went off. Like, oh, I can have a normal conversation with you. And I don't have to worry about you getting angry or flipping a table. This is going to be a good holiday. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So when your dad then offered you rehab and other options, did you just reject them out of hand? I imagine if you didn't think you had a problem, that was probably your response.
Complete denial. I don't need those
Hmm.
things. Why would I have to go and, you know, to a facility for 30 days? That's a bunch of sissy talk. Uh, and
Hmm.
yet he went to a rehab facility for 30 days himself. So presenting that option, although it was there, I was not receptive to it whatsoever. Which is why I went the route of doing it on my own. And, a lot of the story is I used anger as my fuel because I was angry at him for offering these options and then quickly taking them away when I reached out and said, "Hey, I need the help." And so I got super angry, and that anger really was the driver to me saying, "I'm done. I'm going to do it on my
Hmm.
own."
They must be so proud of you now, to see the progress that you've made.
I hope so.
Yeah. I have a friend whose brother literally drank himself to death. And I know it was excruciating as a family member to watch that process and really not be able to make a difference in any way. Is there a recommendation you could offer to someone who's in that position who has a loved one who was who's killing themselves with alcohol or some other substance, some involved in some kind of addiction?
I have quite a few, but the one that sticks out to me the most is reaching out to ARISE
Hmm.
intervention. There are interventionists that work specifically with families. I myself will be going through that process to become an ARISE interventionist eventually. And they work directly with the family for 6 months, helping them, even if the person of concern is not involved in the process. So at least the family gets the healing that they need.
Wow. And is there a correct way to deal with an alcoholic who is in denial and pushing away help?
That's a really tough question to answer because everyone's so individually different when it comes to
Right.
drinking and how it affects them personally. Um, you have your angry drunks, your stubborn drunks, your happy drunks. Um, and then people that don't even recognize that they have a problem. So each individual is really different. My suggestion is always if you're doing the work for yourself, that's all you can do because that will energetically translate to them somehow. If it doesn't, it's not your fault. And to make peace with the fact that it's not your fault that they are the way they are, alcoholism truly is a family disease. And if you look back at somebody's generational patterns, chances are alcohol did not start with the person that you see in front of you. It started many multiple generations back. And so we need to be able to come together as a family and make that aware that this is a pattern. If you give that to the alcoholic and you show them you're not the problem started 5 generations, 10 generations before you, the light bulbs start to go off because
Mm.
I was told that my great great grandfather was an actual alcoholic and beat his wife and children, um, and didn't know how to stop. And then his children became alcoholics, and then my father, and then me. So it was just this generational issue. And I look at it now as it gets to run out with me because I made the decision not to pick up again, and pray that my daughter also goes that route.
Good for you, Brittany. So, what did that do for you to see the generational impact? And you said that that awareness helped you in some way. What way did it help you?
Oh my gosh, so many ways. But I think the main thing was engaging back with my family,
Hmm.
asking questions. Well, what were they like? And what weren't they like? And how did, drinking affect them? What was their pattern? And giving more of that insight and that glimpse into their life and how it mirrored mine when I was in my addiction was really powerful, to be able to look back and see that and have conversations with an aunt or an uncle and say, wow, do you see this in yourself? Because I see this in myself and I'm 5 generations removed from this person. Yeah.
Wow, that's something. You said that when you decided to stop, you actually got down on your knees and it was a moment of surrender. Was there a conscious thought that I am surrendering to God?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
And what was the immediate response? What was your sense at that point?
um, well, the words that I heard were welcome home.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And was it around that time that you read an article that you found inspiring involving CrossFit?
Yeah. So I grabbed my laptop after having that conversation with God and open it up and just kind of, how to get sober on your own. And this article popped up from that year, 2013. It was a gentleman who was a CrossFitter and was a heroin addict. And there was this whole write up about how he did heroin, tried to compete, failed miserably, and then locked himself in a closet with gallons of water and some bread. And I thought, this is extreme. This sounds very prison like, but it got me thinking, what would it look like if I did the whole gym thing? How would that look? So I Googled, CrossFit gyms around me and found one about 15 miles away and booked an appointment. Got in the car 2 days later, showed up and told the gentleman at the desk, hey, I'm about 48 hours sober. I don't know how this is going to go. I may or may not throw up on your floor. If this guy in the CrossFit games could, lock himself in a closet and get sober and now talk about it, I can do that too. So here I am. Help me out. And this man just looked at me and he said, Welcome to the gym. Hi, my name is Tim. It's really nice to meet you. By the way, I'm 5 years sober myself. Come on in
Hmm.
and let's get started. And if you throw up on the floor, you're going to clean it up. I'm not. But we hope you stick around. And so I did. I stuck around for a year and a half at that gym before I moved to Texas.
That sounds like a divine appointment to me. Did it feel that way to you?
Very much got involved. Um, I don't think I'd be here without that presence of God. I don't think I would be sitting here talking to you had I not answered the call and said yes to the Spirit and be moved by it as well.
So, for someone today who is at the point where you were 10 years ago, what would you say to them?
I would say I know that you're hurting, and I know that there are feelings you probably feel as if you cannot process, and you're not alone. You're not on an island, and you're not different from the rest of us. There is a way out, there is hope, and there's help. And if you need it, there's people like myself and others that are willing to hold your hand through the process because on the other side, there's clarity, there's freedom, and there's a whole nother person that you haven't met yet.
And I think it's amazing that you're interested in being an interventionist. That's going to be such a gift to a lot of people, I'm sure. That's very inspiring. It sounds like you've done a lot of work mentally and emotionally and spiritually too. What are the some of the biggest issues you've had to work through?
Well, Beth, I went through postpartum depression in 2020 and 2021. So at the height of COVID, I'm very extroverted and love to be around people. And so when the world shut down, it shut me down as well. And
Mhm.
I just felt like, how am I going to go on? And now I have this baby and I'm trapped inside this house. And the doctor said, well, we can give you medication. It's going to be fine. And I looked at her and I said, I don't want that. I want to feel through this. And just like I did recovering from alcoholism, I felt through the pain of having this child, having a new identity to work through, getting on the other side of that. And I really, really struggled with the feelings of isolation and loneliness and being so afraid that I was not going to hurt her, but something bad was going to happen to me or to her. And I had to work through that pain and that suffering to really understand that I am not my feelings. But if I don't allow myself to process those feelings, they will come come get me. And so I went to therapy. I did EMDR around all of these these feelings, especially the loneliness and feeling isolated. And really worked through those pain points that kept coming up from childhood because a lot of that showed up. And so I would say, besides, recovery, that's been the hardest journey to walk through. Um, and as a mom, you're just a different person on the other side. Hormonally, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you're just a different person. And, for all the parents that are listening, you resonate with that because you're either laughing or seething at this moment. But at the same time, our kids are such beautiful gifts and they teach us so many wonderful things. And through the breakthrough of these feelings, I benefited from finding my voice again. And, Avery gave me that gift of finding my power again as well.
Hmm. It seems like today so many people numb themselves. We all numb ourselves in different ways. How important do you think it is to feel through those feelings like you requested of your doctor?
I think that it is the single most greatest gift that you benefit from for yourself. Because if you continue to suppress those feelings, they're just going to keep coming back bigger, stronger, harder at you. And they're going to show up and manifest in different ways, like weight gain or stress in the body, cancer. They have a way of dictating how your body shows up. And I wasn't willing to go down that route. And at the beginning of this year, in February, I turned 37 and I hopped onto the scale that weekend before my birthday. And I looked down and I saw a number that I'd never seen before. And I was like, this is not normal. And my body was in fight or flight. It was, had I processed all these emotions, it was great, but my physical body was not well. And so I thought, I'll just go to the gym, it'll be fine. And it wasn't about that. It was that I was holding on to anger and resentment of self. And that was still there in layers. And so I'm still working on that this year of working through the layers of that self hurt. But when I look at emotions and I can see somebody sitting in front of me is hurting and going through a really tough time, the first thing that I offer them is just to make space. Make space, make time for those feelings. Allow for them to come up, allow for them to, be named. You can give angry Alice a name and have a conversation with it. You don't have to process it all in one day. But giving it a name, seeing it for what it is, asking it what it needs from you is a start. And that's really the catalyst that I find with clients where if we can name it, we can release it.
So this is a lot about self-awareness for someone who doesn't feel very self-aware.
Yes, 100%.
Self-assessment, you have to kind of constantly being assessing yourself. It seems like. Is there a process that you use to do that regularly? Do you have like a particular pattern that you engage in?
Yeah, I have my own
Uh-huh.
methodology that I call the breakthrough BS method. Because that's really what we're trying to do is break through the noise
Mhm.
that's holding you back. And like I said, the very first thing is really naming what that feeling is, and then where is it located in the body. So, for instance, if you're suffering from imposter syndrome, there's a feeling that's underneath imposter syndrome, usually that's fear. And so, what's the fear? The fear of being seen or fear of being rejected or whatever the case may be. And then I'll ask somebody, where is it in the body? So I have them close their eyes, get grounded on the floor, and then have them pinpoint where is that located in the body. And usually at that point, that's when the tears are flowing because they go, oh, it's been hiding under my armpit or in my neck or my shoulder or my leg. And I just kept suppressing it and pushing it away. So we call it forth. And like I said, we give it a name and then we go into the questions of asking it what it needs. How does it want to be seen, heard, appreciated? And then from there, we release it. And so we release it through somatic exercises, whether it's tapping, breathing, jumping up and down, rolling on the floor, depends on the person and what the body is needing from them in that moment. And you can do this pretty quickly. The awareness is the key. So having the ability to spot in your own body where you're holding that tension. And what I found from my own experience after doing this since February is extremes amount of weight loss. Um, but more importantly, extreme gratitude for self and knowing that there's so much peace that can be had when you make progress through these emotions and you say yes to yourself.
So is that a process that you just take as it comes, like whenever an emotion comes up that you feel like you need to deal with? Or do you have like a regular time where you evaluate yourself?
So, me personally, I do this every week.
Mhm.
Yeah, I will make
Okay.
time for that every week. And then with clients, it's definitely not on the fly. It's usually every session they have their box of tissues and we're processing. Um, so it's the beginning of the breakthrough method. On the other side of processing the emotions, what I love helping people do is really reclaim the identity of who they are being, who they want to be, how do they want to show up in their power, how do they want to present themselves to the world, and then also how do they want to redefine success on their terms.
You defined it earlier when you were an alcoholic as money and success in business. How do you see success today?
I see success today as getting out of bed, breathing, and being grateful for the fact that I get another day on this earth to change my life and someone else's. And if I can give the gift of love to someone else, I I am successful. And I also think that, when I look at my daughter, that in and of itself is success, right? Being able to create a relationship with somebody else is success. So everybody's definition is going to be different.
Hmm.
But after redefining it from materials, money, possessions to just being, has been a huge game changer and a really big shift for myself. Yeah.
I imagine. Do you have a spiritual life now? Do you find that continuing to surrender, whatever it may be, anger, frustration, continues to release you toward healing?
Yeah, I get down with Jesus for sure and
Mhm.
get down with my Bible every night. And I think that for me it's a continual process. Progress over perfection for sure. I am definitely not the perfect Christian by any means. Um, but I take it in to everything that I do, whether it's praying for clients before a meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting, praying for somebody that wants to work with me, um, or even simply driving my daughter to school, and having
Mhm.
that God talk in my mind or in my spirit, praying over the dogs that keep popping it in and out. It is the go-to for everything that I do. And, you know, God is at the center of my practice every single day. It's at the center of my business, at the center of my relationships.
I'd like to talk with you a little bit about your work life because I know you had some pretty high powered jobs back while you were drinking. And I think you indicated that jobs were part of the loss you experienced. That is ultimately what cost you your last job. Is that correct?
Not my very last job, but the first one that I ever um, did after college. Yeah. Um, I got out of school during the 2008, 2009 recession and went right into pharmaceuticals. So I started out in the pharmaceutical industry, and that's when my drinking was at its worst, at its height. I came home. Um, ironically from Texas after a weekend of just straight partying. And it was a Monday afternoon, and I got called into the director's office, and she said, "We can't have you on the team anymore. Your performance is down. This isn't going to work for us." And I asked her, "What do you mean my performance is down? Show me the numbers." And she said, "I don't have to do that." And so it kind of became combative. And she said, "You have until Friday. You can fight this. We can legally fight against you, and you will lose. Or you can start going around in the company and ask who else is hiring in their departments. But as far as this one, you're gone by Friday."
Hmm.
And the lady that brought me into the company, I called her and I told her what happened. And she said she has no legal right to do this to you. If you want to fight, we can, you know, get you a lawyer from our end and help you out. Otherwise, um, I'll ask around and see who's hiring. It was definitely a God thing because nobody was hiring in the company. We were in a recession. So why would anybody be hiring? And I left on that Friday. I actually took a whole month off of drinking to figure out what was next. So I knew I could stop. I just didn't at that time go long term. And I found a new job, took that job. I was there for a miserable 8 months in a job that was not for me. I wore many hats at another pharmaceutical company. And the job that I was assigned to do, I never got to do because the company was really small and there was a lot going on. And by the grace of God, he sent a person in to buy materials from me because I was the purchasing manager at the time. And she said, "I don't know why, but I feel the need to get you out of this company and I want to offer you a job." And I said, "Please, I will take it. I'll clean toilets at this point. I need out of this position." And she said, "Let me see what I can do." So we exchanged phone numbers. And by that afternoon, she set up an interview for me the following week with her boss. And it turns out that they were hiring, they were looking for somebody because the previous person was moving to another country. And I took the job. And it was the best job ever. I had so much fun. I learned so much. So that was a chemical sales position, and I did indoor sales and outdoor sales. So I worked the desk, and I was the call center in which everybody would call into and ask a bunch of technical questions. And then I would get on the airplane and I would fly to my customers and present and show them, why they should buy from us. And during that time is when I made the decision to finally get completely sober. So it was definitely a turning moment for me.
You tell a story about someone who offered you a job about the same time that you were considering going out on your own. Could you share that?
I'll never forget that. So after the chemical job, I took a huge promotion to move to Texas for another chemical company. And unfortunately, that company decided that they were going to sell off all their assets and be bought up by somebody else in 2017. So I was kind of blindsided by a layoff. Didn't see it coming. And a customer had called me and said, "Hey, we need some product from you." And I told him, "Hey, I no longer work there. I was fired yesterday." And we got talking and he said, "I can hire you. I would love to hire you. I would love to bring you on. You've been such an asset to us." And I said, "Let me think about it." So overnight I prayed and nothing came. Not a yes, not a no, not even a maybe. And I thought, if this isn't a heck yes, I can't take this. And so I called him back the next day and he said, "Have you made your decision?" And I said, "The decision is no." And he paused. And then he said, "You know what? I'm really proud of you because you're standing in your truth. And this is just the beginning." And then he told me a story about how his daughter was a nurse in the hospital and she didn't like what she was seeing. And so she decided to go out on her own and become a traveling nurse. And she took a huge pay cut for about 5, 6 years until her nursing practice got off the ground and she was able to hire some people to help her out. And he said she never gave up on herself. So don't you ever give up on your dream. Don't you ever give up on your truth. And, it's funny. That guy messaged me not too long ago and asked me how I was doing and also let me know that he was retiring. And I told him, you changed my life that day and I I just thank you for giving me the push that I needed.
That's an amazing story. I always think it's neat to see events like that where someone is putting really your needs above their
Mhm.
own. Um, because I'm sure he could have used your help and needed you on their team, but um, obviously that encouragement meant a lot to
Yeah.
you. So that's really neat. So tell us about what you're doing now.
I
You've referred to
call
it a little bit, but
Yeah, I call myself a sober success coach. So I'm combining sober work, sober coaching with success coaching. So helping clients get sober and stay sober and also redefine what success looks like in their life and giving them the tools to get free from, what they think is success to really redefining it. And that could look like somebody from the financial industry coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm a month sober. I need help with that. But also, my sales are down and I have no idea why." It could also look like, a struggling CEO who's trying to make payroll and freaking out and turning to alcohol and not sure how to stop the bleeding in the company and to learn how to pay people and stop stealing from themselves, right? Or it could look like
Mhm.
a mom who is turning to alcohol daily because she can't keep up with the stress and the to-do list and the tasks that are in front of her. And she feels the need to go out and, drink with her friends or have wine in her juice box along with her daughter. So it's a combination of different people who come from different backgrounds. I call all of my clients CEOs because they are the CEO of their own life. And they're the ones that get to really redefine what life looks like on their terms. And I think starting with success and dropping the alcohol is we're going to start to see more and more people choose the sober route because they are seeing the health benefits of dropping alcohol rather than putting it into their body. I also think that
Mhm.
we're at the beginning stages of another wave of people leaving the corporate space because they're coming to terms with the fact that it's not satisfying them anymore and they want to start their own thing. And so they're looking for what is that next purpose and who am I being in that purpose? And so I like to be at the forefront of that and helping them see that, their success was not a paycheck, but they're successful because they're deciding themselves, they're choosing yes to themselves.
Okay, and you focus on women particularly, correct?
I actually work with men and women.
All right. You said that one of the recurring topics is addressing pressures. What are some of the ways that you suggest managing pressure?
So let's kind of define pressure. because I think that pressure shows up in many ways. The one way that I would define it is pressure to perform. So always having to be on, always having to look the part, be the part, feel the part, and, show up a certain way, even if you don't feel like it. So managing the pressure, um, it's kind of hard to define what it would look like. But for me personally, in order to give you a glimpse into how I've been able to manage it, is again redefining what success looks like, but locating where that pressure is in the body and what's the story behind it? Why is it there? What's it really trying to tell me? And can we rewrite that story? So for me, it was actually in my liver, in this pressure to perform. And I would constantly feel my liver like an accordion, pain in, pain out, pain in, pain out. And I never understood why it was there until I looked up the liver. And the liver is a significant organ in the body. We can't live without it. And its spiritual meaning is a release of anger. So if your pressure to perform is linked to, not being seen, not being appreciated, not being heard, you get angry and then it manifests in the body. That's my story. And so if that is something that people resonate with, how can we rewrite that? How can we process the anger? What are some ways that we can release that? Well, number one would be through your breath. Two, some people like to meditate. I personally enjoy going for a walk and praying and asking the anger what it needs because it is a messenger. I bought myself a red light to do red light therapy. So before I go to bed, I have a red light that shines on me. The dogs love it as well. And then other self-care practices like therapy or getting inside a group or a community that supports you and feels the same way that you do and sees you for where you're at. So all of these things to be able to gift yourself these gifts. And, somebody wrote today, self-care is not a luxury. It's a discipline. And discipline is the highest form of self-love. And so if you can give yourself the gift of self-care, you have gifted yourself self-love. And so I can change the anger into self-love through these practices pretty quickly.
Well, this sounds like a passion project. What does it mean to you to be able to do something in work that you feel so passionately about? Well, something that's so particularly meaningful to you. Um, I'm sure you enjoyed your other jobs, but this obviously has a very deep connection with what you personally believe and what has healed you and given you joy. And now you're able to share it with other people so that they're able to experience the same. That just seems very special.
I think that we get to find our truth through this process. And I'm just one little person that's constantly searching for what that truth is. But to be able to help somebody else find their truth, that's really what this is about for me, is getting to the truth of who you're being. And then to take it a step further, for you to see that you're worthy in that truth. So you don't have to waver. You don't have to explain yourself. And, you're worthy because you just are. Just because you're being, just because you're alive, you're worthy. And helping people see that that is part of the truth as well.
Well, Brittany, as we wind up, this podcast is called Lessons from Living. And I always ask in considering your life to this point in time, what are the top lessons in life that kind of rise to the top for you?
Ooh, I have them written down, so I'm going to share them with you.
Awesome.
Number one, you have a very big heart, and so use it to your advantage. Number two, and this is my favorite one, there will always be someone taller who can't rock heels like you can, because I stand at 5'2". Number three, you are loved so much by your future self. Number four, never give up on your heart. And number five, always speak and seek your truth.
Those are great. Well, share with us how listeners might get in touch with you to learn more about what you do, or if they want to have the opportunity to work with you.
Sure, there's a couple of different ways. I have a community called Quit Like a Leader, and I often promote that on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, it's Brittany, Brittany. Last name is Young, Young. And my website is Brittany Young Wealth. That's WEALTH, BrittanyYoungWealth.com. So you can check out my story there and also book a call if you want to talk further and see how we can get you inside that community. And then I also work one-to-one with people. And in 2025, going to be starting to invite corporations into this work as well, so we can start having the conversation of alcohol-free corporations and companies going forward.
Wow. What a great idea. That is very innovative, I think, and timely. I grew up with a father who he had his own company, but he was a salesman in every sense of the word, and very much entertaining people like you described. And he didn't live as long as I would have liked to see him live. So that is really exciting to think about the workplace being a different environment. And I really like that idea. Thank you for coming up with it. Well, I really appreciate your time today. You have really given us a lot of insight and wisdom, and I know there are other people listening who have been through or are in the midst of going through what you've gone through, and I know your words will touch them. So thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure. This is, life's work, and I'm just really grateful to be able to share it.
Well, we're grateful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks again, Brittany, for spending time with us today and sharing your inspiring story. I think it will make a big difference in a lot of lives. I encourage you, listeners, friends, to subscribe to the podcast. That makes a big difference in our ratings, as well as writing an encouraging review on Apple Podcast. And I will leave you today with the words of Simone de Beauvoir. Every morning, we get a chance to be different, a chance to change, a chance to be better. Your past is your past. Leave it there. Get on with the future part, honey. Go out and make it a great day.